So before we get into graduation, I'm so excited to introduce two of our graduates, Suzanne Farr and Liz Rodak, who have kindly agreed to answer some questions and talk to us a little bit about their experience at Aoeu. And again, we'll wrap up with them right at 3:30 Central so that we can start graduation on time. But in the meantime, welcome, Suzanne. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great to be here. Thank you for inviting us.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, and I love the fact that you both have your Aoeu t-shirts on. Like, again, there's all this cool stuff that I can't have. I haven't earned one of those yet. So,
right.
So I guess I want to start. Liz, I'll ask you first. The big obvious question is, why Aoeu? Why did you select that for your graduate degree?
It made the most sense. It's almost the only program that I know of and I think exists that would work for me. At the time, I had 3 little kids. Now I have 4. I was full-time working. Financially, I'm still young. My husband and I are both teachers. So this was really the only thing that made sense. And I was able to actually get it done in like a normal, timely manner versus I'm going to be in school the next 20 years of my life.
So Suzanne, what about you? What made you select Aoeu?
I'd had coursework other places and had kind of started and stopped. And I gained a lot of respect for the art of education before they even offered, I guess back in 2014. So I think some classes were starting to be offered in 2011. And so I dipped in and there was no turning back because my first class was just so engaging, inspiring, and it was applicable rather than just being theory, and just found my tribe here.
I love that. Suzanne, what was the first course that you took? Do you remember?
My first class was Fibers with Amber Kane. Yeah, and I used that stuff in my middle school classroom directly after that, and very, very useful.
That's fantastic.
She's super talented, so she was a great teacher.
Awesome. I love to hear that. So then take me back to when you guys were making this decision to say like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the plunge and get a master's degree. How long had you been thinking about it, and what made you finally decide, okay, I'm doing it, I'm going for it? Liz, if you want to go first.
Sure. I hadn't been thinking about it very long. In fact, it probably was even only like a month or 2. I was just going to go back to the University of Cincinnati where I got my undergraduate, and I was going to go into counseling, which was sort of something maybe I'd be interested in, like art therapy eventually. So that was sort of my weird indirect route. And then I got like a email or something popped up that I saw about like, we're about to do a master's program. And then I actually like had a phone call with, I think you, Tim, actually at the beginning.
We were all admissions counselors at the beginning.
Yeah. And then I was like, I was sold. I was like, wow, this will work. Like it worked with my district. And it felt like, the biggest gift just like sat at my front door, and I was like, I have to do this. And I did it.
That's awesome. Suzanne, what about you? How long had you been thinking about it, and what made you decide to go for it?
My track was I have a BFA in graphic design from UIC. Then I went back to get my professional certificate in art education. But you'll notice that was not a master's.
Sure, yeah.
That was in 1996. So I've been kind of looking around for a long time, and then looking at something that would fit in with my life as well. And I don't like wasting my time on things that I'm not really going to use. So that's why I started inquiring after my class, when are you going to have a master's? When are you going to have a master's? And then I got this like little hint email, we're going to have a master's degree. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was, it was something that was in the works for a really long time, many years of putting it together. So when we were finally able to like let the cat out of the bag and send those emails. It was so exciting.
Yeah, that was fun. Now, Suzanne, you mentioned your fibers course that you took, how applicable it was. I'm curious to know, like, did you have a couple other favorite courses that you took? Like, can you talk about favorite ones and what you enjoyed about them?
Well, I got so much out of so many different classes. Instructional strategies was really interesting. I took iPad for art, which was great. Also, in a lot of my different classes, I was able to create videos for, as you know, instructional videos, which when COVID came was incredibly useful. I already had a lot of knowledge of what to include and some considerations that I may not have thought of if that hadn't been included. Yeah, all of my coursework has been incredibly helpful. I have to admit, I really like the studio classes, but I'm a complete wonk and I get completely enticed by all the methodology and theories too. So yeah.
So a little bit of everything for
A
you.
little bit of everything, really. Yeah.
That's awesome. Liz, same question for you. Do you have a couple courses that really stood out to you, whether, you know, they're super enjoyable, really relevant for your teaching? Like, do you have a couple that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I also loved the studio classes.
Yeah.
I took those later as well, and I did them over the summer, so it was like kind of more enjoyable for me. But the other ones were very relevant, and I did them during the school year, so it was actually like perfect. I was able to focus on my own artwork during the summer and take the studio courses and the instructional strategies and yeah, all of that during the school year. And I would say fibers, and I took that with Jennifer K. Rivera, and ceramics. I teach ceramics for high school, so that's my passion. That's what I focused in and what my research was about. And then I really liked photography as something that wasn't really up my alley, but really challenged me as an artist, and has been helpful in teaching my kids how to take good photos of their work. So that was sort of like a roundabout benefit in the classroom. And then I loved mission of teaching, and the capstone both of those ended up being really cool classes.
Nice. Shannon, can you give us a quick overview of mission of teaching and capstone so people kind of know what they're about?
Yeah, so that's the very end of the degree. Those are the 600 level courses. And so that's really digging into sort of teacher leadership and applicable research. So when we look at research, we're looking at action research through the lens of a teacher. We're looking at passion projects and stuff that you can use in your classroom the next day, but is still based in research and teachers conducting research in their classrooms. So those are the final two courses. Those are core courses. They are required. But I think I remember doing my own action research project, and it helped me see that research is a piece of teaching, that we are conducting research in our classroom every day. It just puts a more formal lens on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Okay, so sorry, I don't mean to take over the interview here, but I'm very curious.
Please do.
Just the research thing, because I feel like teachers are, I don't want to say scared, they're intimidated by having to do research. It's something that not a lot of people have done. They don't know where to start or what they can do. So Liz, you mentioned that you did research in ceramics. Can you talk about what that looked like and, just kind of, what you did throughout that process?
Yeah, that was the big question, especially at the beginning. I mean, I was like, what? Data, research, ceramics. Yeah, so I did art-based research, and what that practically looked like was, it was my own research in clay. So for me, I was researching how to use texture and the medium of clay to create metaphors in my work. And I had a therapeutic lens throughout the entire course. And so, yeah, I was looking at how practically do these textures actually metaphorically relay emotions, experiences. And then not only, I had my own research made out of clay, but then I also had my own writings, poetry, reflection, journaling that was all considered data and research, and then also input from my panelists and from, my classmates and Dr. Harmon, just like giving me feedback on my work and how that was actually coming across. And it was really cool because I had a variety of panelists in the art world and not. But yeah, it was all research.
That's cool. And
Great.
do you feel like that was more for your own personal work, or do you feel like that went toward your classroom and your teaching a little bit more?
Both. It has impacted both, both worlds significantly. I push texture a lot more within the classroom. And now, I have a bunch of examples of my own work to kind of show students. Yeah. And for myself, that was a really interesting season in my life. So I have this kind of cool, monument to remember it by.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, Suzanne, same question for you. Can you tell us a little bit about your research? What got you interested in it? Like why you decided on the topic you did?
So my capstone research, I narrowed in on in the mission for teaching class, which prepares you in terms of reconnecting with what is really important to you. And then you take that into the capstone class. And I researched the studio habits of thinking. And my class and my colleagues and my professor helped me narrow that down to how I would use that. So I ended up studying the creative process and how to express and use that in the classroom. And the studio habits of mind are very authentic in terms of what artists go through and the processes that are happening in your mind, and then you're interacting with your environment, reflection, and all of the parts of the 8 habits of mind are really inherent in art making. And so I related it to my own art experience, and I reflected on that, and it spurred my own art making and gave me confidence in my own art making that hadn't, and time to do it that I hadn't allowed myself for many years. And then it's really impacted the way I teach in middle school, and using that vocabulary and using that framework for how I instruct. So it was really, really, the process was very intrinsic and very relevant to what I was doing in my classroom and as an artist.
Oh, that's really good
Wonderful.
to hear. So, okay, Shannon, I'm sorry for taking over. I'll step back because I know you have things that you want to ask as well.
Gosh, let me have the spotlight. Okay, so I guess what I'm wondering, thinking about going back to school is a huge undertaking and super relevant, exciting, but also I'm sure it was tough at times. Earning your master's degree is a huge milestone. So Liz, what was one thing that was difficult about it, either academically or personally, to make it through the program?
I feel like it's okay that I share this here, but I, at the beginning of my capstone class, context, I was 26 at the time. I had 3 kids, a 3-year-old, 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old, working full time. And I was pregnant, and I was due April 1st, and my capstone class would have ended at the end of March. And so
Superhero.
yeah, so I was at the beginning of my capstone class, and I called Jenny Burrell, and I think I texted her, and I was like, I need to talk to somebody. And I was freaking out. I was sobbing. I'm like, I'm a grown woman, but I'm freaking out. I can't do this. I have to write a 50-page paper. What? And I was nervous. What if my daughter comes early, blah, blah. Well, she did come early. She had a birth defect. She was in the NICU. It was crazy traumatic. COVID hit. It was absolutely ridiculous. But thankfully I was done with my research, the ceramic side of it. But I finished my paper in the NICU, and I don't know that the art of education will ever know the blessing that they were to my family, to me personally. Dr. Harmon was so supportive through it all. My peers were so supportive. And I was able to finish that. And I remember it was like, I think I was on my 117th page writing it, just sobbing in the NICU, and finishing it. And just the encouragement and the empowerment that I was given by everybody, everyone that I interacted with, and the love. And I mean, I had like cards mailed to me from former professors in the program. And, Jennifer K. Revere, Jennifer Burrell, Dr. Harmon, they all sent me letters, and I don't know, it feels like a family, even though it's really distant and you don't have this like face-to-face interaction. But I could not have done that had I been in any other program. And I know that.
That's amazing. If you're at home, give it up for Liz Rodak, who did it all at once. That's pretty amazing.
I only did it because there was the support.
Well, I'm sure I know a lot of those people are in the chat right now and cheering you on still. So
thank you.
Suzanne, I'm going to direct the same question to you, and then we're going to wrap up because we are almost at the start of graduation. So biggest, challenge personally or professionally that you encountered during your master's degree?
I have nothing like that.
Oh. Sorry, I could have asked you that one first.
No.
That's okay,
I mean,
because
I had to have a million Post-its everywhere, but other than that, I mean, it was nothing like Liz, amazing. Like Liz and I had a curriculum class together.
Yes.
Oh.
I don't know. I was like, we took something together.
Yeah, before this. So, and I guess one of the great things about the Capstone project was how connected we became with each other in that group. And it was it's still a support group for the 4 or 5 of us that were in that. It's really that's a really good experience, that class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, you guys are set to officially graduate here in a couple minutes. Anything special that's on the horizon now that you guys are master art teachers?
Well, I got a pay raise.
Oh!
Yes.
Good for you. You deserve it.
And I'm doing more art now. I made a place for my own art, and that really was in no small part to Jethro Gillespie in that Capstone project, and my team of peers. So shout out to all of you.
That's so great. Liz, what about you? Anything amazing on the horizon?
Just let my kids get a little bit older, and then you guys have to get a PhD program for art therapy. So
we don't have anything shared today, but maybe in the future. That's
cool.
awesome.
Well, Suzanne, Liz, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, to share your experiences. I know it's really valuable for a lot of people to hear from a couple soon-to-be graduates. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you guys so much. And congratulations.
Yes.